Well, hey everyone, and welcome to episode 21 of the Pixar Post Podcast. As usual, I'm TJ.
And I'm Julie.
And on this episode, boy, we have a lot to talk about. Tons of news from the Cars 3 leak.
Rumors,
if you will. Yeah, rumors, not a leak. We've got Cars 3D as well as Monsters University that came out on Blu-ray. We've got some Monsters University scare cards we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a little bit about the closing of Pixar Canada, the Toy Story in Space Disney Infinity playset. Woo, the list goes on and on.
I know.
But the creme de la creme of this episode is the interview that we did, and we were lucky enough to have, with Michal Makarewicz, who is the supervising animator on Toy Story of Terror. So we got lots of great insights into the world of animation, as well as great insights into the
animation in general, like his road to Pixar, basically.
Right. Yeah, so it was
really inspiring stuff.
Right, so be sure to stay tuned for that. We're going to put that near the end. But first, let's just go through some of the opening news and other many things that are going on in the Pixar world right now. So we know that, kicking off, we know that this is a little bit older at this point. It happened on October 8th, but Pixar Canada officially closed its doors, and this obviously came as a shock to a lot of people, and we don't want to spend a lot of time talking about it, but what we didn't want to do was also gloss over it like it didn't happen. So we didn't. So we wanted to just basically give a small tribute to Pixar Canada and say, obviously, thank you to all the animators and the staff, whoever it is that was there within.
Yeah, everyone at Pixar Canada has really, opened their arms to us, especially when we were doing all this stuff with Party Source Rex. I kind of feel like, if we ever went to Vancouver, we would have, friends there.
Right. Yeah. And that was one of the things that we had talked about right away, is we felt like, it was obviously so personal to them, but in a way we all found our personal ways that we connected with Pixar Canada in some way, whether it be through the shorts or whether it was from our standpoint, the communications that we did for Party Source Rex, like you mentioned. And, obviously when we heard it, it was, a little bit of a heartbreaker.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we feel for, these people. I mean, granted, we've never personally met them, but gosh, my heart just goes out to them. Even still,
Right.
I mean, these business decisions can never be easy, and obviously people are, in the dark until something like this happens, but my goodness, they're all so talented, and I know, they're going to go far and find, new and exciting adventures, whether it be still at different studios around Vancouver or whether they, come to the States.
Right. Yeah, that was one of the big discussions that people were talking about on the forum is, how are they going to be able to move over to Pixar in Emeryville? And, a lot of that is obviously, some of them already lived in Vancouver. They may not want to move. Some of them would have to look at getting visas and those types of things. There's lots of extra layers there. But certainly the one thing that we wanted to make sure as well is that some of those, the senior folks that moved over from Emeryville, we still haven't heard anything as far as if they're moving back to Emeryville, and we certainly hope that they are.
Yeah.
So, but either way, we didn't want to spend a ton of time on it because it has been talked about at this point, but we didn't want to ignore it either because it was one of those events that really kind of threw us, for a loop a little bit, and we're very surprised to hear it.
Yeah, definitely. But, we keep thinking about all our buddies out in Vancouver, so we're still thinking about you guys.
Yeah, so thank you very much for all your hard work, and, obviously, that we respected it tremendously with Party Source Rex, Small Fry, the
Time Travel Mater.
Yeah, all the different things.
So many things.
And we saw
the Shorty Shorts.
Saw such a bright future there too. So, anyways, moving on from there, we don't want to, like I said, we didn't want to spend too much time on that. A quick bit of news on the forum, on the Pixar Post forum that we have. For this episode, we occasionally will pluck out questions from the forum that people have mentioned and kind of say, hey, you know what, that's a really good thought, or a comment that they had, and we wanted to talk about it on the podcast. But today, it actually came from a post from Dan, the Pixar fan, and he asked a question that has perplexed Julie and I, and we've thought about for a long time. And, we've probably heard this, but it just didn't stick. So I thought once I read it again, it was such a great reminder that I wanted to pass this along to everybody else too. So he wanted to inquire and look into the age difference in Up between Carl and Charles Muntz. Because he was sitting there, and I know, Julie, you always talk about this.
Yeah, I do.
So he's sitting there, Carl is sitting in the theater, and he is watching Charles Muntz.
I kind of have an answer for it.
Okay, so he's watching Charles Muntz. Carl is so young. Charles Muntz looks to be a little older. But what was your comment here?
Okay, I feel like Carl, when he's in the theater and he's watching Up, he is about, I would say, between 7 and 9.
Okay.
7 to 10.
Okay.
And I feel that Muntz is in his 30s.
Okay.
Late 30s.
Okay.
So when Carl, maybe mid-30s, early 30s, something like that. So when Carl's older, I feel like Carl's around the 70 age frame.
Okay.
Which would leave him Muntz to be late 90s.
Okay.
That's...
Okay, so Dan did...
Or 65 to I feel like there was like a 25 to 30-year age difference between the two.
Okay, so
that's what I think.
So you're a little off. So Dan did some research as well. So he asked the question and then ended up finding a response in a tweet from Lee Unkrich from 2009. And he said essentially that Carl was 9 years old at the beginning of Up. So you were right there, saying between 7 and 9, so 9. And Charles was 23.
Okay.
So Dan also remembered that later in the movie we find out that Carl is 78 when the movie is going on, and that makes Muntz 92.
Okay.
So obviously you have to say,
which I believe.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you were within the realm there, but I have to say,
kind of off by saying almost 100.
Well,
I should have been thinking about that a little more clearly.
Well, no, but either way, so that's what my thought was. Is that's a spry 92-year-old in Charles Muntz.
Well, let's aim to be like Charles Muntz. Well, not exactly.
Yeah, only in our actions, and not in our actions.
Not in our actions. Our sprightness.
Right, there you go. So anyways, we thought that was really interesting, and obviously wanted to thank Dan for putting that out there as a way to remind us of it and to pass the word along, because it was really cool to kind of rethink about that again.
Yeah, it is kind of fun, the discussions and the topics that are brought up on the forum. Just from films in the past, and just questions like this that really make you think, and about the characters, and about, that was like basically character and story development right there.
Right.
I love that stuff, so keep it coming.
So also about the forum, when you were mentioning some of those little questions and things that are out there, if people haven't noticed, we wanted to just point out that on our main homepage, when you go to just pixarpost.com, underneath where it says search Pixar Post, which is right underneath where the current image of Fergus, King Fergus from Brave is that I drew, underneath that there is the top 5 posts, the top 5 most current posts in the forum that appears there. So just so you know, if you're ever on our website and you can get a quick glance over there to see what the top 5 most current posts and responses were, that way you can see like, hey, do I even need to head over there or anything like that. And then obviously, even if you're on the forum itself, once you log in, there's a new posts button, which can pull up all the different posts that have came up since the last time that you were logged on. So lots of different ways, but we just wanted to point out those 2 little tips for the forum there. All right, so wanted to talk very quickly, just very briefly, about Disney Infinity. There's a little bit of Disney Infinity news. So obviously the Toy Story in Space playset has come out.
Your most anticipated playset yet.
Yeah. And it is absolutely amazing. I don't want to go into a full discussion of it here because we're going to end up doing another more complete video review of it. But I wanted to note that upcoming this Sunday at Toys R Us, which will be November 3rd for North America, they're rumored to be releasing the Race to Space playset. Now, this one is not confirmed yet, but the Race to Space playset contains a Crystal Infinity Lightning McQueen, a Zurg power disc, a Finn McMissile power disc, as well as the only way that you can get this particular character, the Crystal Infinity Buzz Lightyear. So we already have the regular Buzz Lightyear for the playset.
Right.
And of course,
we already have the Crystal
Lightning McQueen. Don't even get me started.
Someone couldn't stop themselves.
Who's that?
Not me this time.
So I gotta have it.
I know.
Because Buzz Lightyear. Come on, it's Buzz Lightyear.
I know.
But anyways, I'm really excited to get not only another Zurg disc, because you can stack the circular discs to get increased power, so we can get another Zurg disc, but also because then we can get that Crystal Infinity Buzz Lightyear. And there's still, thanks to Inside Disney Infinity, they had said on one of their podcasts a while back that there's still a rumored glow Buzz Lightyear, in which he has different varying lights that come through his physical character, and you see him when you put him on the base, he'll light up different colors. So that's pretty cool.
We're going to have a couple variations.
Well, we're hoping that one still comes out, but we shall see. But anyways, I just wanted to pass that along because those are going to be starting. And then also there's going to be each Sunday starting on November 3rd for the next 3 Sundays, there's going to be extra exclusive power discs that are going to be coming out each weekend at Toys R Us as well. So if you're playing Disney Infinity, be sure to head over there and take a look at some of those. All right, so moving on, Monsters University has come out on Blu-ray as well.
Yes.
And
finally.
Yes. So we already had the digital version.
Right.
And we had already watched that, but I have to say that the Blu-ray is fantastic.
Watching it in true high definition at home, wow. I mean, at the theater when you're watching it, you can't pause to really appreciate the scenes. Mm-hmm. And like at home, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there's a scene, it's basically right before Archie the Scarepig comes in Mike's room, where Mike's sitting down. It's at night. Randy just left to go to the party, and he's sitting down at his desk, and we've paused this, You can see dust particles in the air. And not just like dots of dust, squiggly like lint lines in the air by his desk lamp. Yeah, so it's where he's just about to open his book to start studying. In fact, he just opened his book. They've got the desk lamp there with that bright light coming down, shadowing the side of his face, the other side of his face. You can see, just like you're saying, those dust particles. Yeah, the frightening Frank McKay. You can see the poster. It has wrinkles in it. Yeah, when it's been rolled up for like years.
Yeah, you roll a poster, unroll it, hang it, don't take it down, and it has like those little lines in it where when it's rolled, and if you might squeeze it a little bit, roll, and then like once you unroll it, now those lines appear throughout everything. Yeah, we really got to see a lot more. His desk calendar. It's one of those big paper desk calendars and has the leather corners. You pointed that out.
Yes.
That the
edges, the leather edges.
The leather edges were more worn on that. Yeah, so we thought that was really cool.
And of course, the concrete. The concrete really gets me.
Yeah, I know. You do love it.
I don't know why.
Concrete.
It's concrete, but no, like the gum on the... Whoever animated and did this concrete, I'm like in awe. Because I even told Dan when we were at the Monsters University event, I'm like, that freaking concrete is amazing. He's probably like, what?
Yeah, exactly. We worked on all this stuff, and you notice a little piece of gum on the concrete.
Yeah, the concrete and the cloud cover.
Sets department, yeah.
I just love it.
So, the other thing that I wanted to talk about with the Blu-ray is, having that digital version, the download from iTunes. It is so much, it's not so much. It is just enough more crispness in the Blu-ray version, with it being directly connected through the Blu-ray player to our high-definition TV. You see a lot more detail than you do streaming it through the Apple TV or watching it on the computer. So as much as the digital version is fantastic, I have to still tip my hat to the Blu-ray version. You're getting a little bit better as far as the visual, but then the most important thing is you're also gaining the audio commentary.
Yes.
And the audio commentary on this one is from producer Corey Ray, director Dan Scanlon, and the supervising story,
Kelsey Mann.
Story artist Kelsey Mann. Right. So fantastic.
Who taught my favorite class
at the Monsters University press event held in April.
He's very engaging.
Yes.
Great choice for him to be on the audio commentary track too.
Yeah. So we definitely recommend it. If you haven't listened to the audio commentary, we're going to be doing a full review of the director's commentary, the commentary track coming up. But the extras overall are phenomenal. We found one little hidden Easter egg, which that's in our post of the review of the Blu-ray. So check that out if you want to look for that as well.
There's more than just that one that we found.
No way. I dug through that thing. Are you kidding me? I pressed up, down, left, right for 4 hours. I was sitting there going.
It's like that Nintendo code.
What is it?
I don't remember.
Oh, come on. It's up, down, left, right, BA, select, start. Well, you don't have to do select. Select is 2-player. Anyways, getting nerdy for a moment. But either way, that hidden one is pretty cool. It's about the opening title sequence and Adrian Molina's work that he did as a story artist on that opening sequence. And it was really cool to hear his discussion there, because what I found most interesting is that he says as a story artist, the majority of the time you make hundreds and hundreds and thousands of frames. Mm-hmm. But they don't physically get seen in the movie. They're converted through various stages to get to the final product. But their vision as a story artist is usually never seen in the back end. And what he says is that opening title sequence, even though it's, again, not his direct storyboard drawings, it's the closest representation of his storyboards, because it's more of that 2D look,
right?
And they do show some of his storyboards where they just they essentially did take just his storyboards and convert them to direct animation, like flat 2D animation look. Mm-hmm. So it was really neat seeing his passion for getting that title sequence in there and all that kind of stuff. So certainly check that out. So much inspiration in all of the extras. The Paths to Pixar was fantastic, where it shows talks about all of the crummy or oddball jobs that many of the people that worked on Monsters University had prior to starting at Pixar, or what their first job was. And I would say the common thread is that, holy cow, a lot of people that eventually work at Pixar worked in food service at some point. Yeah. There's lots of bussing tables, there's lots of burger flipping, lots of crazy stuff like that. So anyways, I thought that was really interesting. So be sure to check those out. And again, we're going to be doing, again, that director's commentary or audio commentary review coming up here as well. But the other thing that the Monsters University Blu-ray did to us, or for us, is after we started watching the closing credits again, it made us watch those, the scare cards fly across the screen. And we said, you know what? We've heard so many different times that they're going to be made, they're not going to be produced. They were produced, but only given out at the Monstrous Summer Event in May, that 24-hour period where Disneyland, Disney California Adventure, and Disney World were open for that period of time. They're on eBay, they're selling for, a lot of them, a lot of money. Right, then there's the projectionist set that came out that was only for movie projectionists that's sent away for this thing. So there's so many different ways that these cards are kind of trickling out there. So we did a complete guide post, so definitely check it out. It'll be in our show notes. Again, this is episode 21. Go to pixarpost.com, click on podcasts. You can see all the show notes here.
There are a lot of them.
There are a lot of cards. The set that was released at Disney World, Disneyland, all that kind of stuff, was a 30-card set, 29 individual cards, and then one top card, which had mostly
basically
the cover
like the
of the
movie poster.
Right, but definitely check that out if you're interested in collecting cards, whether it be just like about learning about the monsters. The stuff that I thought was absolutely hilarious is how they have the stats on the back with, like, for instance, on Carla Killer Claus Benitez, how it lists how the first 4 years of her career she was actually at Fear Co. And then almost like a baseball player, like they had it like where she was traded, essentially starting at Monsters like Incorporated. Stats. Yeah, it had all the stats. And my favorite stat on the cards is the dead doors. So how many dead doors did that scarer have?
Oh my gosh, that's genius. Wow.
Yeah, so that's my favorite one, is how many, hey, we got a dead door over here.
You know what I would also
Needleman
like to see?
and Smitty can come in and shred the door.
Yeah. With the scare cards, I'd like to see, like a Fear Co. scare card, a Monsters Inc. scare card.
They have some of them.
Monsters University one with like the actual, like businesses and stuff. Kind of like you have like a baseball team card.
Oh, the team photo. Okay,
yeah. But instead of the team photo, it would be the picture of the company with their stats on it.
I love it. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, or Fear Tech, like the stats of the school.
Right.
And then Monsters University,
Yeah.
And then any other, there's got to be like a tech school or something, just another school.
Scream Inc. is one.
Yeah, so
Scream
all
Inc.,
of
Fear
those.
Co. Yeah, okay,
they could really make this a bigger set if they did that.
Oh, I would love to have it be a bigger set, but I'll tell you what. So you mentioned like the team photo of a baseball card. The one thing that I don't want to be in these packs, though, is what? What do I always complain about when I was growing up, and occasionally when I still pick up a pack now? What do I complain about when I open it up and I get in there?
The manager?
No, I don't mind the manager as much, though that is second in line to what I don't prefer getting. It's the checklist.
Oh, the checklist. Yeah, you're right.
I can't stand it. I used to open up like packs of baseball cards. I'd buy like 5-10 packs whenever I had any money. I'd go cut a lawn. I'd get some bucks. And you get the checklist. So I hope that if they do produce these, there's not a checklist card, because that fills up one of the 10 that's in the pack or whatever. Oh, it used to drive me nuts.
I hope they put a stale piece of gum in them.
I hope they do not. That gum was awful.
It just crumbled apart, but you still ate it.
Oh, as a kid, you'll eat anything if it contains sugar.
Then you just oh, gosh.
I know, 2 minutes later, it's solid as a rock, and you have to spit it out.
It was just dust in your mouth. But you didn't care because you were a kid. It was like gum.
Yeah, well, like I said, anything. You'll eat anything if it's sugar if you're a kid. We talk about it all the time. We'd eat candy even if we didn't love it because it was still candy.
That was you. I was more of a picky candy eater.
Oh, well, whatever. Well, I guess this is a relevant conversation, seeing as this podcast is going to hit the airwaves on Halloween. So anyways, getting back on track a little bit, the Monsters U Blu-ray, as we mentioned, came out, but coinciding under that and kind of slipping under the door a little bit was the Cars 3D. Now, this is the first Cars movie on 3D that was also released on Blu-ray. And you might be thinking, isn't that already out? I mean, they had that director's box that came out with it when it had the John Lasseter car on the top of it. Mm-hmm. There's multiple versions that have been released. There was a single disc Blu-ray of Cars. Anyways, Cars 3D is the first time that this particular Cars 1 has been made in that third dimension.
Yeah.
And yes. So, and the only thing to note there is that if you're not collecting 3Ds, 3D discs, it's probably not the most important to get, only because there's no other special features or anything new on the disc. It's essentially just for the conversion of for completists that are looking to get all of those Pixar movies on 3D. All right, so moving on to, speaking of Cars 3.
Rumors.
That rumor kind of cropped up about a week and a half ago, and Michael Wallace dropped an interesting little tidbit when he was a guest on a radio show. Actually,
which Michael is the voice of the sheriff.
Right, yes.
Sheriff, I shouldn't say the sheriff. I mean, he is the sheriff. But
wait a minute, what's going on here? So yes, he's the voice of Sheriff in Cars 1 and 2, and when he was on a radio show back in August. So it's been hanging out there for a while, but it just all of a sudden popped up
on the internet.
On the internet, more people started noticing it, and then the post went crazy wild. Well, let's take a listen to the clip, and then we'll talk about that in just a second here. You just listen into what he says here. It's really interesting.
Good morning and welcome. This is Let's Talk on Z1570. Mark Ellenbrock here with you today. Thanks for tuning in as always. Michael Wallace is my guest. Michael is a graduate of 1963 from Western Military Academy. We're going to spend a little time talking about his time here at the school, but also going into a little bit of his career, too. He's a best-selling author and writer, and also has done some voice work, including for the movies Cars and Cars 2 as the sheriff, and we'll talk a little bit about that, too, later on. But an aficionado and really also very strongly tied to Route 66. So a lot to talk about in this time that he has here with us this morning. Michael, nice to meet you, and welcome.
Well, it's good to be with you. Delighted.
So that you can get to your next event, I want to ask you, too, then how did you go from your writing career to voice work?
It was my book early on in my career, Route 66, The Mother Road. Actually, my second published book. When it came out in 1990, it immediately kicked off the timing was perfect. It kicked off a renaissance, a revival of Route 66 that continues to this day. And, well, that book inspired a man named John Lasseter, the creative head of Pixar, some years later to decide to do a movie about cars. And he wanted to do a movie about a hotshot race car that was full of himself and got lost and ended up on a 2-lane road. And the road he picked, of course, was my road, Route 66. So I became their consultant and helped them put the movie together, took the creative team up and down the road. Every vehicle character comes from either a person or a composite of people on the road. And then my wife and I wrote a book. They asked us to write a book called The Making of Cars, The Art of Cars, about the making of the movie. And then, of course, he had seen me in these films. He liked my pipes, and he said, "You've got to be the sheriff of Radiator Springs at 49 Mercury." And by God, I became the sheriff looking for tractor tippers. And I found them all. And then that led to us creating Cars Land, 12-acre large park by Disneyland. Mm-hmm. Just, it's Radiator Springs come to life. We did Cars 2, which I'll skip over because I didn't particularly care for it. But Cars 3, we're coming back to the road. And we're coming back to 66 and to 99. The 6 is upside down. That's the road that runs right through Central California.
All right. So that is obviously pretty shocking to hear. And, I kept thinking to myself, if I was the radio host and I had him say that, I'd be like, whoa. Wait, what?
What?
Wait, what did you just say? Repeat that again.
Yes.
And I would ask for more details. I'd be like, all right, we need to have a little side conversation here. Because obviously, as many people have pointed out, as soon as this rumor came out, they're like, Tom Hanks mentioned something about Toy Story 4 a while back, and then other people have said, there's been other people that have said things like this in the past.
And they end up being tunes or shorts.
Right. So the only difference is when I hear Tom Hanks talking about Toy Story 4, he said, I think there was so much ambiguity. In this, he's got details. First off, Michael Wallace was their consultant for the first Cars movie, as he mentioned in there, teaching Pixar and taking them up and down Route 66. So with this, it would make sense if they got him involved early again and talking about Route 99 because he's written books on these topics. I don't think that he's done one specifically on Route 99, but you could imagine that he would have a familiarity with 66 bumping into 99, which runs, as he mentioned, north and south through California there. So that would be my only thing that makes me think that there's some validity to his rumor.
Or could it be kind of like a Toy Story of Terror and kind of be another 30-minute special?
There certainly could be. It certainly could, and I can't rule that out, obviously, because as we know, everybody knows exactly what we know. It's just what this clip was, that it could be coming out there. But the other thing that I keep thinking about is from a merchandising standpoint, and I understand that Pixar does not make their decisions solely on merchandising.
Oh, for sure.
Obviously they're about a quality product. But
you love the Cars merchandise.
Well, of course I love the Cars merchandise. So there's part of this that I'm going to say here that's for my own good.
Yes.
and wants, which is, really, if you do think about it from a merchandising standpoint, Cars is their biggest moneymaker. Mm-hmm. Between and then Toy Story leading right behind that. So they've made 3 Toy Stories. They did the Toy Story of Terror. They've done Cars, they've done Cars Tunes, they've done Cars Shorty Shorts. There's so many different ways that they've expanded the Cars universe. I really feel like I want it to happen.
I know.
And I know there's so many people that immediately were thinking, oh, no, please no. They already did some terrible things with Cars 2. And again, you and we have already talked about it on here. We don't feel that way.
No.
I still hope they do it. I think it would be fantastic. And if they are bringing it back to the road, and it's got Michael Wallace excited by bringing it back to the road, I'm listening.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the Cars franchise. It's funny when Cars was first, we saw the teaser for it, and I was like,
I remember that very vividly when we were in theaters.
Yeah, it was like, wait a second, how am I gonna...
Yeah, because I think
how am I gonna connect to this, Cars and
right, you're like the NASCAR.
I'm like the windshield has eyes, and I'm how am I gonna,
Yeah, as a girl, how am I gonna connect to this?
But seriously, I love it. And I just, the characters.
The characters are what totally sells it.
It's not just the characters, but it's the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's obviously what, Pixar's not only known for like their flawless animation details, but the story is what really drives, each film. And I was a fan of Cars 2, the storyline. I thought it was very clever.
It was fun.
I liked the James Bond feel. So, Cars 3 going up a different route and seeing things that are close to home to Pixar Studios
could be really cool.
Could be very interesting. Think of the Easter eggs, everybody.
Maybe you'd see your own house in the movie. So anyways, we just wanted to bring that up because obviously that was some big news that had happened about a week and a half ago, and we just wanted to expand on our thoughts on it a little bit. And obviously we heard a lot of feedback from everybody else as well, so definitely. That's cool. So speaking of things that we had talked about on a previous podcast, we had asked on our last podcast, we discussed the big changes that happened with The Good Dinosaur, with the date being pushed back, with all the other news that came with that, with director changes before that, and everything along those lines. So obviously, we don't want to spend a ton of time on this again because this has been talked about, but one of the things that is over the weekend, this last weekend, was a leaked poster, we'll say leaked for right now, about The Good Dinosaur. So I thought this is fantastic. Julie and I are in the car. We get the email. Tell everybody what your initial reaction is when you see the poster.
I said, this is fake. I said, this is not Pixar. Nope. Not a chance.
I thought
that was the first thing I said. I looked at it and I showed you and I was like, this is not real.
Yeah, and I said, what the heck? Because I couldn't believe it. Because I was like, okay, there's obviously something true here. We're looking at a truly rendered image of Arlo and Spot and two of the bugs and what we had known as the font of The Good Dinosaur.
Right.
So I'm like, something's up here.
It's the foliage. Like the foliage. Yeah, foliage and...
the colors.
It just...
the layout.
Seemed off. It seemed too busy for me.
Yeah.
It did not seem like a Pixar.
Well, and the other thing that the other thing that threw me off for sure is the fact that it said 2015 at the bottom. If they were going to do a teaser poster, it would have been with the 2014 date. Why would they have just now made a teaser poster for a movie that's coming out in 2015?
Right.
So everything seemed fishy about it. So we didn't post about it. We kind of let the dust settle a little bit, and we wanted to see what was going to come up. And now, obviously, Big Screen Animation had done some contact with Pixar, and Pixar has officially now said that, no, this is not... it was leaked. It wasn't leaked. We didn't produce it, essentially. So we don't know if it was just maybe somebody within the studio that had access to these images that somehow got out, and then somebody else put this together, or if somebody was just having fun, just trying to get some creativity and just layering things, and then somehow or another, like it got passed from one person to the next to the next, and next thing you know, it found its way outside of Pixar. Whatever it was, it clearly was not a official poster. But what I did want to take away from it, though, is since I mentioned that it clearly is an image of Arlo and Spot and the bugs. Now, Arlo blew my mind. I can't say blew my mind.
You really enjoyed the detail on his skin.
I liked the skin. Arlo's skin, how it has like the wrinkles.
And Arlo's the dinosaur.
Arlo's the dinosaur, yeah. So Arlo has like those wrinkles in his skin like an elephant would have. It almost like is like a scaly because he's a dinosaur. But what I thought was so cool is how if you look at it closely, there's variances in his skin shapes. And then not only that, but in the variance, there's also variances of color. There's variances of lightness and darkness. Super cool. Like that part, I was like, now that's Pixar. Because I love those details.
It did surprise me how light of a green
you did say that. You said he was like too, like maybe sea foamy.
Yeah, he seemed really light. And I thought he'd be more forest green-ish. I mean, not completely, but just a darker green. So when I saw how vibrant he was,
right,
it surprised me a little.
Well,
not in a bad way. It just surprised me.
Right. So what I had mentioned to you, and I'm wondering if this is, again, with this changes going on. Who knows what will truly come of this. But I was mentioning to you that I think it was probably more of because if the trees are going to be a deep kind of hunter green, he would then stand out among the trees and the other foliage. As you could imagine, in a dinosaur-run farming community, there's going to be lots of greenery. They need the dinosaurs to have some type of contrast, yet still remain within an expected dinosaur color.
Right.
So anyways, I thought that was kind of cool. And that the skin definitely was like, I couldn't.
I know.
So anyways, the other thing that we wanted to mention is we had put out a request on our last podcast to have people call in to our voicemail line and let us know what they thought of the story changes, who they guessed the new upcoming director might physically be, since there's still the outlying group of Pixar employees and Pixar brass that may be that director. And then... what else do we ask there? There was the story, if they would still be farmers, and then there was about the director. So anyways, we're going to play you a sample of 2 of our favorite voicemails that we received. And there's a little bit of Toy Story terror in there, which we're going to talk about as well, too. So let's just take a listen to that.
Hey, howdy, hey. This is Dan, the Pixar fan. Just calling in regards to the Good Dinosaur changes. So obviously I feel the same way a lot of other people feel. Very similar to you. I was very excited about the Good Dinosaur, obviously. I was going to have my birthday party at the Good Dinosaur. Totally looking forward to that, but oh well. And so yeah, I was sad when it was changed and pushed back a year and a half, but like you, I know it's for the best. I trust Pixar to make this decision, and I know that it's going to be for the best of the film, and we want it to be great, and it's going to be great. So I'm willing to wait an extra year and a half for, an epic picture that's going to be just fantastic. Okay, as far as the story, yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, because it's being pushed back so far, it does seem like there is drastic story changes being taken place. So as far as the farmers, I'm not sure. I thought the idea was cool. I thought it was very unique and original, but, we'll see. I can't really say on that one right now, but I do wonder about the voice cast as far as is the entire cast still going to be there that was announced at D23, Lucas Ness, John Lithgow, Francis McDormand, Bill Hader, Neil Patrick Harris, all the cast, are they still going to be involved? And if there has been big story changes taking place, they need to record their dialogue over again and come back for additional recordings? That's kind of the big question I have. And as far as the director, I'm kind of leaning towards Lee Unkrich. But again, it's really hard to tell. There's so many directors there and so much amazing talent there that I can see it being Peter Stone taking the place, Mark Andrews. I can see John Lasseter, but I'm going to say Lee Unkrich. Just that's my prediction. But so I guess that's what I have to say about the changes, and I'm looking forward to hearing the next podcast. Thanks so much, DJ and Julie. You guys rock.
Hey, Pixar Post. This is Unkrich Tori. And I was listening to your podcast yesterday, and I thought of 2 things. The first thing was, this is in the Pixar Post Podcast 19, that when you were talking about Toy Story terror. Now, I noticed that you guys talked a lot about Woody, but the thing that shocked me the most was how much different Rex sounded. Like, he sounded a little high-pitcher than normal, which kind of worried me. Like, I know they do different people, but the Woody sounded a little normal because that's his brother. But Rex was the one I thought that sounded the most different out of all of them. And then my second thing was in podcast 20, and I noticed that you guys were talking about how the date for The Good Dinosaur. Now, back when it was Toy Story 2, the software for like Pixar wasn't as it was older, so it wasn't bigger. So it didn't take them as long to redo Toy Story 2. But nowadays, with like all their technology, it would take them a longer time because it's more advanced. And I also think that since they moved it for a whole year and a half behind, and in 2015, I think they're going to rewrite the whole story and start new.
All right, so thank you again to Dan, the Pixar fan, his second mention on this podcast. Yes. And also with Lauren Cacciatore in there, who is not only, I thought it was interesting that she brought up Rex in her comments because she loved Partysaurus Rex as well. So she caught on to Rex's voice there. But we'll talk about that in a second. So from Dan's voicemail, the one thing that we really thought that was really interesting was his comment about the vocal cast and if they're still going to be there. You know, if we were talking about a lot of story changes, if we're talking about potential character changes that may come along, is the vocal cast going to still be there, and are they going to have to re-record some voices? First off, obviously we don't know what's going to happen, but that is a fantastic question if all those people are going to still be there. But without a doubt, they're going to have to re-record vocals. I can't remember who it was that already said, and I think it might have been in that Tom Hanks clip talking about that his brother does the Woody voice when he's essentially for the shorts and games and all that, where he talked about that they do an initial run through, then they'll come back in like another 6 months and do another run through. So I think that this would be more kind of common, you know, that they've already been there, they've already done the vocal, and they're gonna have to. Especially there's going to be elements of it that are going to be rewritten. Yeah,
I definitely think that some vocal tracks have already been, you know, recorded for The Good Dinosaur.
Well, they would have had to have, yeah.
Yeah. You know, but for the vocal cast, gosh, that really is a good question. I think maybe one or two people
might shift. Any major roles that you think will shift?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I really don't think so.
Yeah.
And I don't think Bill Hader will go anywhere. I think he'll stay.
Hope so.
Yeah, because I think he's on for a couple of them. So,
right.
It's so early to say, but gosh, I really don't think that the vocal cast is going to change.
Okay.
Much, if any.
Now, you heard it here first.
Yes.
So then from Lauren's standpoint, she had talked about something that was interesting as far as the time to redo Toy Story 2 and comparing it to the time frame that they're going to have to redo The Good Dinosaur. So it will be interesting to see when this all fleshes out and we all see all the way at the end what will happen. Is this going to be a complete rewrite? Is this going to be like Toy Story 2 where they had to, in a year and a half, jam this whole thing in here and try to get it done really quickly? What will it be? But her comment about the technology and, you know, that it's more advanced now, so it takes longer, it's kind of a yes and no. So yes, there are elements of that are correct, but then there's other things that, well, it's a little off only because with Toy Story 2, they had certain limitations based on what the hardware could do at that time. So the render time is essentially still on par with what it is now, because as the computing power has increased, they've put more technology behind the movies to essentially increase that rendering time again, which meant that they had to double their render farm and all those other kind of things. So it's kind of on the level playing field there. But it is interesting, you know, if you think about all the downstream, like with the global illumination that we talked about, you know, how that can assist, doesn't take over, but it assists with the lighting, so they may save a little bit there. I don't know, it's interesting. It's interesting to think. I would love to be able to see, you know, that kind of comparison. So once we look back on The Good Dinosaur when it's released, we'll be able to get a better picture of that. But I thought that was an interesting comment as well. So Lauren's other comment was about in the Toy Story of Terror commercial, the Sky Broadband commercial, that Rex's voice sounded really different. And yeah, absolutely good observation. We did look into that when we were doing the when Jim Hanks is doing Tom Hanks's voice as Woody. But we could find no information as far as who does Sean Wallace's, or who replaces Sean Wallace to do Rex's voice on the commercials. Because we did notice that Timothy Dalton, who does Mr. Pricklepants, was also different on the Toy Story of Terror Sky Broadband commercial. So luckily it all panned out. We found our familiar friends and voices in their proper places in the official special, the 30-minute special. But it certainly is not all that uncommon for commercials, video games, those types of things to have secondary voices, especially like in Disney Infinity and all those kind of things.
Sure.
We've certainly heard a lot more. So, but excellent catch there, Lauren, as well. So speaking of Toy Story of Terror.
Did you love it?
Yeah. Are you asking me? Because I think you know my answer. Yes, we loved it. Okay, so our initial thought, we looked at each other after the second commercial break, and in all honesty, we said to ourselves, this is going very fast.
Yes.
Now, we felt like it was a little fast as far as from a story standpoint, as well as just an overall pacing. But when it was done, by the time the whole thing ended, we looked at each other and just said, okay, it might have seemed fast, but we still want way more.
Oh, it's funny because, I mean, it's a film in 22 and a half minutes.
Right.
And I was like, no. It's like, not another commercial. It means it's almost over.
Yeah. Oh, we loved all the commercial breaks. You know, that was obviously one of the things that the Pixar team had talked about leading up to the release. Is they said, heck, we don't ever write in this format where there's 4 acts to break it up for the different commercials. We usually have 3. There's
and
like
have the suspense.
Right, and to have the suspense build right where the commercial break is. And you're talking about TV, it's a defined timeline. You're not talking about a movie, which can kind of be like, it could be anywhere from an hour. You shoot for like an hour and a half, but it could be anywhere from an hour and 25 to an hour and 45. You know, there's room to wiggle room to play there. But from an editing standpoint, man, that must have been a challenge to get it to be exact.
To the frame.
Right. Yeah. And what was it? Galen Sussman, the producer of Toy Story Terror, she said that on one of the behind the scenes that it was just like we had that many frames, no more, no less. That's it.
Yes.
So I thought that was really insightful, and I wish I could be like you always say. You want to be a fly on the wall in Pixar sometimes, just in different meetings and hear and see how things happen. I'd love to see it in the editing
room
and in the story department to really see how all those things like. How do you get this to be so timed?
Or where it could have gone if it could have been a minute longer.
Yes.
What would have changed? A minute.
What would a minute do?
What would a minute have done?
I like that.
maybe they'll release it on like a shorts DVD.
I would love to see something
on
come out.
iTunes exclusive.
That would
and
be
have
great.
Bonus features of stuff, that didn't make it.
Yeah, that'd be
I would
fantastic.
love that.
Yeah, so speaking of the commercial breaks and the suspense that they created, our 2 favorite ones were when Jesse's in the bathtub, right when the monster, the iguana, slashes at the shower curtain and it cuts to commercial. We were like, no!
I loved that.
That one was great. But
it's just that horror film and suspense. It was perfect.
What's funny, though, is we don't like horror films.
No, we don't.
At all.
No, but I think it's because it was, our beloved Toy Story characters. I wasn't scared.
Well, of course. But, okay, so that one, would you say that one was your favorite commercial break?
Yeah,
where it went to the commercial break?
Yeah.
So mine was where she's getting taped in the box.
Oh, yes.
Because I remember when it went to commercial, I looked at you and I was like, oh my God, that is so cool.
I know. Well, we had to keep going back because you kept rewatching that scene.
Yes.
Because you liked the heartbeat, you liked the music.
Yes.
And the lighting from the tape.
Yes. Oh my God, how awesome was that? Where the flaps are pushed down, you get that little shaft of light coming through there, and it's, of course, right on her center of her face, going down from her forehead to her chin all the way down to her feet. And then like when the tape starts going from the front, of course it's from the head to the feet too. Oh man, that was so awesome.
Right.
Somebody posted on our website as well in the comments that they said a play off of the movie Kill Bill. I wasn't able to comment on it because we haven't seen that, but I thought that was interesting. I'm sure it probably had reference that it was against, but oh my God, that was so awesome.
Yeah.
That was so awesome. I
think that was
loved
one of your favorite parts, too.
It was one of my favorite parts of the entire short because you could feel everything. Between how amazing the packing peanuts looked, don't even get me started. They're like that perfect pink that you expect. They have variances in the depth of them where they're not.
Some are cracked and
some are cracked. Yeah, absolutely. Some are different sizes than others. I love how they animated them to have a lightness. Where they looked like they were floating because if you throw up packing peanuts, they float down a little bit. Love it. So I love the fact of all of that coming together, that the packing peanuts are there, the fear, the heartbeat, the music. To me, everything in tandem just worked there, and that scene was over the top amazing. I did love we talked about it, the bathroom scene as well.
Yeah, the bathroom scene actually really got me. The lighting, it's that dull lighting.
The dull
bathroom looked so realistic. I couldn't even believe it.
The fact that they even had that clothesline thing that they only have in bathrooms and hotels.
Yeah,
where you pull that little clothesline across and
in
put it there.
the grout was uneven on the ground.
The caulking around the tub.
Yeah, the tile.
Yes.
It was just
so amazing.
Yeah, just those things that you see that would be, not perfect in a hotel room.
Right.
Like
it's not
a
perfect.
motel.
It's not perfect at your house.
Yeah,
I mean, caulking and all that kind of stuff you're doing it by hand, so it's never precise. But and it's just mirroring
and
what
the scratches that were on the towel ring.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just the scuff marks and
Yep.
stuff. Oh my god!
But it's mirroring the same comments in what we were amazed about with Monsters University,
right?
With the details of the poster on the wall and all that. So, well, anyways, obviously there's also tons and tons for Pixar fans that love Easter eggs. This special was packed with Easter eggs.
I mean, it basically had the Easter eggs like equivalent of a feature film.
Sometimes more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's, I think if you haven't seen our post, definitely check it out. Again, it'll be in the show notes. But I think both of our favorites was the by and large sticker that you only see for a quick second when the delivery woman is leaving the motel to take she's got the dolly with the boxes stacked on them, and she's taking them out. When she's backing out the door, you just see it reversed. It's reversed because it's a sticker on the inside of the window reading it from the outside, but you can see B&L. And so we both thought that was really cool. The other thing that I loved, and I still can't get over, I've taken pictures of it and posted it on Instagram, German beaver.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. If you think about somebody that found Mr. Pricklepants randomly, you would seriously look at him and be like, what is he? What is he? So the fact that he labeled him on his little...
Ron, the manager,
the motel manager. Yeah, right. Yeah, he takes his little Polaroid pictures and writes their name in Sharpie on the bottom white portion of the Polaroid. Loved it. German beaver.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Because he does. He looks like he's wearing lederhosen in a way.
Yeah, and you wouldn't know, because he's a plush toy. So he doesn't look like a porcupine.
Right. And is that what he is? Pricklepants?
Pricklepants, yeah.
Porcupine? All right, porcupine. So, and what was our favorite line?
Well, what is it?
It's with Mr. Potato Head.
I know, but now I can't remember the beginning part. It's like,
oh, jeez.
It's like watch it pants or
can it pants.
Oh, you put me on the spot when I was like not even thinking.
Nice. Well, yeah. Can it pants. This life ain't a movie. She ain't never coming back. Absolutely loved it. The fact that he doesn't even call him Mr. Pricklepants, that it's just, it's classic Mr. Potato Head. Classic Mr. Potato Head with this little snarkiness and sarcasm and total pessimism. Mm-hmm. Like he's always the first to jump to, it's forget it.
It's over.
Oh, man. So awesome. So anyways, now is the creme de la creme of this podcast. We were lucky enough, as we mentioned, to get an interview with Michal Makarewicz, who's a longtime Pixarian that started with Pixar in early 2003. He's worked on so many films that you would think that he was... so many Pixar films that you would think at this point he's an industry veteran, and frankly he is, but you would think he's a lot older than he is. He's in his mid-30s, just like you and I.
Yeah, he's
mostly
our age.
me.
Yeah, he's your exact age.
He's my exact age, and again making me wonder what I've been doing with my life, thinking of all this, because the guy's already won an Annie Award for his animation work he did on Ratatouille.
Yeah, I think he's done 8 features and 5 short films, or worked on 8 features and 5 short films with Pixar.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm looking at myself. I'm like, well,
I've watched 8 features.
I have like a 5-year award. Like I've been at the same place for 5 years. Like this is what I got, and he's got like an Annie Award and all these amazing things. But the one thing that you'll learn in this interview is how much passion he has for animation, as well as how hard he worked to get where he's at. So it's
dedication and drive that Michal has, when he shares this with us, and now with all of you, when you guys listen to it, it is so inspiring. It makes you, seriously, if you have a dream, you basically do it. Do anything you can to get there.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I encourage everybody. He also is one of the founders of Animation Collaborative, which is a brick and mortar school for animation. And I truly recommend that everybody go check out animationcollaborative.com. Click on the instructors button and look, and just click on Michael's profile, and you'll see his demo reel from Pixar. And I guarantee as you watch this, there are so many scenes that when you're watching this, you're going to go, holy cow, I love that scene. Oh my God, that's amazing. And you realize all of the scenes that he's touched that will blow you away. So I definitely highly recommend everybody to take a look at that. So also leading in, I had mentioned the Animation Collaborative, the brick and mortar school. The first time we had really come across Animation Collaborative was the International Masterclass that Animation Collaborative and Michael were hosting in Berlin in August, late August. We did a post about that, and so that kind of opened our eyes to it. And you'll hear some of our comments and discussions, so I'll let Michael tell you a little bit about Animation Collaborative. But after we found out, after we did that post, that he was a supervising animator on Toy Story of Terror, we felt like, hey, we really have to take this opportunity and talk to Michael. So we were lucky enough the scheduling worked out that we were able to talk with him. So let's listen in, and we'll chat a little bit more after we listen to our interview with the great Michal Makarewicz. So, okay, well, when we first wrote about the Animation Collaborative, that was for the animation demo and lecture masterclass that you were doing in Berlin, which was your first one that was outside of the United States. And we were completely floored with the structure of the course, the courses, how, and this is overall at Animation Collaborative, how the courses are structured, how it's such a small group that you're getting a hands-on feel with the other students that are in the class, not only from the students, but also from the instructors. So from the Animation Collaborative standpoint, can you give us a little bit more background as far as how you decided to get involved with that, how you decided to start it up, and then where your passion for education and passing that on comes from?
Sure. Yeah. So it all actually started for me. I think just straight coming out of school and having great teachers at school, and then really coming to work here at Pixar, having fantastic mentors and people who really care and love to teach, really just kind of got me excited about that. So when I felt I was ready, I just started to go out there and just go to schools and try to give back and teach something that you love to do. And I really, it kind of like it's like a bug. It kind of hits you, and it just gets really, for me, it really just gets me excited, and I get inspired because I get to see students that are, you used to be there. You're like, oh man, I used to be in that seat, and I used to be scared, just like you, and I want to help you because I think I made it. I'm going to try to help you make it, and it's like this thing that just kind of fuels your fire. It's really great when you see students work really hard. And so I just started to teach. I enjoyed it so much, and I taught at different places. I taught at Academy of Art in San Francisco, where I went. I taught at Animation Mentor, which was an online school, which was an interesting experience, and then CCA, which is over in Oakland. And they're all different kind of schools, and I enjoyed it a lot. But I just realized that a lot of times when you're teaching, the schools themselves have these curriculums, and they're really solid, but they're not the best curriculums that we, when you start looking at them, going like, I think we can make this better. And I think it's always about trying to make something better, which really just stems from working here at Pixar. Always trying to make the work better.
Of course.
But you start to realize that there's just a lot of red tape when it comes to trying to change something. And it becomes very difficult to change. For instance, I was teaching a class where I think half the students really didn't want to be animators, but they were in the class because it was part of their curriculum to do it. And I thought that was such an odd thing, I was just like, well, you really don't want to be here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of odd for me to want to teach in a way. So what I did was after that, I just kind of stopped teaching at the schools, and I had a lot of students who really liked the way I taught, and they would just write me, be like, hey, would you mind mentoring me? And so I basically just got a small group of students together, and I would meet with them and just kind of do more mentoring. And I really enjoyed that because it was more just one-on-one, just really, really fun. And it was on sort of my pace that I felt that they needed, not somebody else telling me how to do it. And that was very successful. So that basically led to the collaborative because I was doing that on my own, and I realized other teachers were also trying to find a better place to teach, a safer place to teach, where they can teach really what they wanted. And so I took a chance and just kind of wanted to start up a place like that where all these other teachers can come and really feel supported in how they teach. And no teacher, they'll ask me like, Mike, what should I teach? I go like, no, you know your what you do best. And there's no way as an animator I'm going to tell a story artist how to teach it. So I go, you are so good at what you do that you just build a class that you wish you had when you were a student, and you do that and you teach your art out and just teach what you love, and then you see that. You see the passion in the teachers, and then you get that passion out of the students, and it's a pretty simple formula, honestly, I think.
Well, yeah, it certainly sounds much more conversational and much more back and forth in that whole process. And obviously, if students are signing up for a course that is in that animator's or that instructor's wheelhouse, you're getting students that know what they're getting into right off the bat. And since it's such a small group, they're getting that really open and honest feedback and communication going right back and forth.
Yeah, one of the things is like from a lot of places I was at was you'd have like 15 students to a class, and I remember having to take literally a timer and time out like 4 or 5 minutes per student that I could only talk to them, so I make sure I get to all the students, which is not that much when you think about it.
Sure.
And so we decided we're like, no, we're only going to have 8 students per class for a 3-hour class, and that makes it easier on the teacher. And easier on the students, and that's just you need that basically face-to-face time, I think, to really get it through, to really have a good education.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that you had mentioned when you were just talking there was about kind of seeing the students in their eyes being scared in the chair, realizing that you were in that position once as well. One of the things that we had done prior to this interview is submitted from our readers questions, and we didn't tell them we were talking specifically to you, but we just said, hey, if you were going to talk to an animator involved with Toy Story of Terror, what would you ask them?
Okay.
And what's funny is one of the common threads among the questions that we received, you could sense an underlying fear or tension. And so I guess, and I'll ask that question in a second, but I guess when we're talking about sensing that fear in students or that you were scared yourself, how did you finally make the leap to just say, hey, I've got to do this and I've got to stop being scared so that way I can take those next steps?
You mean just as like a student?
Yeah.
I think I was, honestly, as a student, I was consistently scared because for me, personally, when I went to art school, it was my second school, so I really couldn't mess this one up. Your parents are kind of like, and I come from a family of computer science majors, all of them, and my 2 older brothers, my mom, my father, and they just I think expected me to do that, and then they realized that my brain doesn't work that way, and I'm an artist, and I think I was like, they're like, what is going on, So I think it took a real leap of faith from them to basically say like, okay, go do this because it seems like something you really want to do. But I definitely was scared because it was the second school, and I didn't know what I was getting into when I was there. So I really just worked extremely hard. I remember, I'd get up early in the morning, come back really late at night, and my mom was very supportive. So she would just get up from bed, cook me some dinner really quickly, and I would scarf it down, sleep for 4 or 5 hours, get back up, and start again. But I started to realize while in school, I needed to focus, and I basically chose a path. I think one of the things that doesn't help is when you become when you're not sure what to do and you sort of do a lot of things okay, but not one thing really great. Mm-hmm. So I realized I needed to become a specialist, basically like a scalpel of what I do, and that kind of a tool, So I took all the animation classes I could. I took every class that dealt with animation, and I took it seriously. And in the other classes that I had, I sort of did the required work, but I didn't put as much energy into it, so I could focus more on the craft that I thought I needed to get a job in. And I worked really hard, and I had a supportive, my mom was very supportive about that, and I had friends who were supportive, but I think just being in art school, it comes with that stigma. Like, I had some friends who were like, really, man, art school? Seriously? And it's just like, oh, and it makes you work harder because you just get more scared, And I just kind of I found a couple of the people who were in a similar situation where they were just as scared as me, and I saw that they were working late also, and we were the only ones in the lab like very late at night, and we became friends, and we really took our work seriously, and found good mentors to help us, along the way too. So
that's fantastic. So if we take anything away from that, it's a laser focus on the areas that are of the highest importance to you and an insane tenacity.
Pretty much. Like, you have to be so dedicated. But I think sometimes you're pulled in so many directions, and sometimes, students don't know what to do. They're not sure. And you have to find, that the one thing that hopefully you can do well. That is hopefully also a natural fit. Because if you're sort of pulled in all these directions, you just could have end up with a sort of an okay skills.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have that very specific set that could hopefully get you that job. And out there are jobs where there's generalists, and that's really cool because they're like, you work for a smaller company and you kind of have to do a bunch of different things. So that's really important too. So you just have to kind of know where you want to go in life. Like what's the job that you want to end up in, and then focus on how to get there.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's interesting too, because I've heard Pete Docter in different conversations mention that start at a smaller company so that way you can get involved in all those different areas if you're still not sure yet. So that way you can start to focus in on which of those areas you want to make your specialty at that studio rather than spending all of your time and energy trying to get right to Pixar.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I remember taking classes that you would take classes that sort of give you introductions to all these different things like lighting and modeling and drawing and gesture drawing and like all these things. But personally, you start to realize it starts to kind of weed itself out. You're like, I'm not very good at this, and I'm not very good at that. But for some reason, I seem to be doing okay here, and I really like it, And then you can, if you know people, you can maybe. I think it's really smart to, if there's a job you want, to try to find somebody who actually really does that job and go and talk to them. Just really ask them. Go like, what is your day like? What is it that you do? Because I think so many people have a misconception of the actual job they want, because it's never the same as you think it is. So I think it's really important for a student, once they know what they want, to try to hopefully find somebody who does it and just talk to them. Just go. If they could even take a tour or see where that person works and talk to other people, you get a much better sense of, what reality really brings you.
Yeah, and that's absolutely fantastic. So, let's transition into Toy Story of Terror a little bit. Mm-hmm. And we'll obviously, with some of these questions, we'll kind of traverse both that fine line of instruction and education as well as animation that you've experienced at Toy Story of Terror. So, in one of those ways that we can kind of do a crossover right off the bat is your role on Toy Story of Terror was the supervising animator. And obviously, we could imagine that you have to have a very clear ability to communicate as well as express yourself to the animators that you're working under. So as a supervising animator, you've come in as an animator, then you rose to supervising animator. I've seen that you've mentioned directing animator on other things before. Can you just talk a little bit about the differences between supervising animator, directing animator, what those may be?
Sure, yeah. And it's funny because a lot of people, I think, get it kind of confused. It is, in a way, sort of confusing. It usually goes, you've got your director of the film, and then for animation, the person underneath that would be, the first person in line would be the supervising animator. And then underneath the supervising animator is the directing animator. And then underneath the directing animator come the animator. So that's sort of the system that's in place.
The hierarchy,
here.
Okay.
Yeah, because sometimes I think people go like, oh wait, so I thought it was going to be directing animator first, and then and it's like, for us that's just how it works. It's supervisor, then directing animator, and then animator. And the differences really are, the supervisor definitely goes to a lot more meetings. It basically has the more of like just the final say of what needs to happen in that department. His role is to work with other departments much more closely. So they're really doing, they're really bouncing around throughout the departments, making sure everything is, everybody's talking to each other, that everything's running smoothly, that the communication is open. Then the directing animators, they're actually more involved in the animation, sort of like they're more on the ground floor of animation, helping animators out and not having to go to as many meetings, so then they can be there if an animator needs help, basically.
Okay.
And a supervisor can do that too, but it's just sort of like splitting up the work a bit more. But as far as I've experienced, the directing animators are a little bit more have a little more free time to basically help the animators themselves if they need it.
Now, as the supervising animator, were you able to, I guess, get your hands dirty and animate anything?
Yeah, I did actually. It's really tough because, again, we have so many meetings we go to, and animation is such a slow process that, and you have to be focused. You have to come in, you have to focus on your shot and really just go through the day with it. But as a supervisor or a directing animator, we're pretty busy trying to keep everything just going. Just keeping everything on course. And so sometimes I'll have to come in and animate for maybe 45 minutes, and then I'll have a meeting, and then a couple hours later I'll have a half hour that I could spare, and I'd come in and animate. But really I would just, more or less, I'll just stay late and just work. And I personally feel as a supervisor that, I like to lead by example. And so I want to do shots on the show. I want to show the animators that I can, look, I can animate. And these are the shots I'm doing with you guys. And if the shot goes well in dailies, then that's great. Then the animators feel like, great, look, the supervisor's doing some great work. If the shots don't go well in dailies, then it's a good learning experience because I have a good conversation with the director about maybe why it's not going well. I can go back to my desk, turn around the notes, and come back, hopefully shortly thereafter, and show the new version, and that that it's not a big deal, and hopefully the animators then go like, wow, like he turned around those notes pretty quick. That's pretty cool. So it's always trying to make every situation, if you can, a learning experience, and make it an experience where everybody's kind of working together. So.
Sure, absolutely. So you mentioned that you were able to animate on Toy Story Terror. What would there be a scene that still made it into the final that didn't necessarily get cut that you worked on?
Yeah. Let's see. So I did some of the Pocketeer shots. So when Pocketeer opens up his pocket and realizes that he doesn't have any more clips, and then he starts to freak out, and then Junior smacks him to kind of get his senses back. So there's a little chunk I did there. I did Lego Bunny transforming, which was 100. I think it was 180 individual pieces that I had to animate. So, and then again, I took on that shot simply because it's a real pain in the butt, and you have a certain amount of budget, and something like that. It's like, you know what, I can go ahead and do that because I'm pretty organized in how I animate, and I think I can go ahead and since it's a one-off shot, I'll be able to just go and take that shot because I'd rather the budget go into something more that we need somewhere else. In terms of trying to find like some sort of maybe some software or some sort of the computer helping you do that,
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I will say the Lego Bunny shot is probably the shot I've watched the most because I'm building a Lego Bunny right now.
So she's trying to dissect it herself, even though Angus just posted today that he's got a little bit of an online like sign-up sheet to try to get Lego to produce it as an official Lego.
Yeah, and Angus has a great rapport with those guys, and he's such a big Lego guy, which is why we have Lego Bunny in there.
Absolutely.
So it was really cool to see what Angus, the stuff that he loves, that it's coming into the film, and I hope that's successful, that he's able to get that from Lego, because that's just cool toys to have. So
absolutely.
And then I think some of the other stuff I did was when Buzz kicks open the grate, and then he starts to throw the hand, and then
into the bathroom.
In the bathroom stuff, yeah. So those are some of the stuff that I did, just to try to help the show out, and also stay animating on the show, because I think that's really important as a supervisor.
Yeah. So you had mentioned as well about the dailies and, getting the learning experiences and all those types of things, or the shot just goes really well and they can pick up that, you turn those notes around quickly. So one of the questions that we have gotten from one of our readers, and this is where it touches on a little bit of that fear element, is must animators present their work in dailies daily, whether they are comfortable with it or not? Or do they get to wait until they're at least a little more comfortable with it to have to present it?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the answer is no. You don't have to present your work daily. We have dailies every day, but you really only present your work when you feel you are comfortable to show it.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great one, because obviously, this particular individual that asked this question is into animation. They asked a lot of very specific questions about blocking, using steps, and all these other things. So we didn't want to get that down into it. But
like other readers are like, I don't understand how what this is all. What are they talking about? Do they have steps? Do they walk up steps?
Yeah.
What do they do?
So also, with you had mentioned as far as the hierarchy of supervising animator and all those types of things, that there's the animators and essentially everybody falls underneath that role. On Monsters University, I believe we had heard that there were approximately 60 to 70 animators that were involved throughout that process. What does that look like on Toy Story of Terror?
Oh, you mean just during how many animators we had? I believe we had about 40, around 40 animators. It's quite a large size, actually.
I was going to say that sounds like a pretty hardy group.
Yeah, it was, and it was an awesome group. But I think just to kind of make it all depends on the time frame, and to make the film maybe a little bit faster to keep on schedule, we probably had to bring on more bodies to help us get some more footage done. So it really all kind of comes down to sort of budgeting your time.
One of the other things that we wanted to bring up, and I'm not sure this obviously falls right within your arena, but I didn't know if you had any insight into it, and it's a little bit of just us kind of gushing moment, is one of the things we loved so much about Toy Story of Terror was that although it was billed as a Halloween special, it wasn't so over Halloween-y where they're waiting, they're getting pumpkins and they're all these kind of things. It just referenced horror movies, and it did these little subtle things to make it fall within Halloween, but yet that you can still watch it outside of Halloween. So do you know if that was a conscious decision, or to keep it not too specific and narrowed to the holiday itself?
I think it was. I mean, you'd have to more talk to Angus or a story guy. I mean, as far as I know, Angus wasn't really trying to go for a Halloween itself special, like you mentioned, that has the pumpkins and all that. He just wanted to make more let's make a horror film, and then it just happens to come out around Halloween, which is great because the themes kind of work together, But really, it's just about making, playing on the genre of making a horror film. And it was fun because we got to make like a campy horror film as part of it, and then we were able to kind of keep it to like a little bit more of a real horror film. So we got to kind of play with a genre we kind of didn't get to play with before. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of kind of like the campiness, were you involved with the bat on a string?
No, I was not. I remember, Angus talking about that, and when we saw it, it looked phenomenal. It was awesome. And I remember somebody, I think it's been kind of coming out where they're like, wow, that animation on that the bat is really good. And we're like, yeah, that one was totally good.
Yeah, we saw some people commenting on that, and it was like, oops, that was not real. It wasn't an animation, it was real.
Yeah, and that's fine. I think it's just like you try to take the whatever tricks of the trade and whatever can make it look its part is great. I love that you study different, all the different films, and you're like, hey, maybe we can do it this way. Like, why not? Let's try it. Let's see what it looks like. It was a pretty cool trick. So
yeah, absolutely. So what scene posed the biggest question? So obviously, from an animation standpoint and even from a story standpoint, everybody down the line has kind of talked about how they had to keep this within that 21 and a half minutes. It had to be so many frames and so on and so forth. So were there any constraints that happened from the animation standpoint that you said, hey, this is a huge challenge for us. We have to cut this scene yet still make it fluid and understand it from a storytelling and animation standpoint?
I think we only got into a couple of areas where we felt like it was running a little bit tight, and I know the Angus and the editorial team were constantly on top of it, trying to keep that box and make everything flow really nicely. I think there was a couple of shots that were cut in bathroom sequence that I had a couple of shots in there. And it made sense when Angus went ahead and cut it. It allowed for a little bit of breathing room so that we could add some time to a variety of shots around there just to make it all flow better. And we didn't miss it. Just looking at the new cut, we're like, oh yeah, honestly, I don't miss that gag. It's fine. It works even better. So that's great. I can't remember too many times when we felt too constricted in animation, because the story team did just a bang-up job. They did such a good job in terms of keeping it tight. And then when it went to into the computer for all the camera and staging artists, when they were able to take the storyboards, put it into the computer, they again did a really good job translating what the storyboard artist did. And then it just went right into our department, and it was very clean inventory, and already the timing was pretty good. So we were able to work off some really solid foundation, which was fantastic.
Yeah, and obviously that's what you want. Like you said, they did a bang-up job, so they brought you something that you were able to work within, that, and you knew what to expect. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that everybody looks for in all Pixar projects are the Easter eggs.
Right.
One of the questions that we've kind of wanted to know is, do the animators help with the placement and decisions for which Easter eggs to kind of sprinkle in there? Or is that essentially all filtering through story, Angus, anything like that?
It's usually filtering through, as far as I know, through on this particular project, mainly through Angus and story, and I think maybe even like art came in there. Bob Pauly, I think, had probably a couple ideas in there, maybe where to put some stuff, but it wasn't so much like it in animation. We didn't have too much say, and in fact, I didn't even know about some of them. I myself was surprised. I was like, really? Is that over there? He's like, yep. It's like, oh, that's cool. And the thing is, you're really busy just trying to get the animation done, and sometimes it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice to be surprised yourself a little bit. But I think that filters more from just Angus.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we've started a list ourselves. Being the Pixar Post, we want to make sure that we're on top of all these fun things.
I think we found over 25.
Yeah, we've got quite the list going, but I didn't know if there was one that you had heard of specifically that you, like when you said, wow, that was in there. Like, what was the one that just surprised you the most that made it in somehow?
Well, I didn't know. I thought I heard that the Pizza Planet truck was in there. And I never saw it, so I didn't know that one. Do you guys know if that one?
It did make it in there. Yeah. Yep.
Where is that? Where is it?
It's on a poster, basically.
A calendar.
Yeah, a calendar.
A calendar. Okay.
When Ron is putting Jesse for sale on eBay.
It's like almost in the shadows over his shoulder, and it's kind of tiny. And in fact, I did misspeak. It's next to a calendar on the wall.
Okay, yeah, because I think Ron has that like iguana calendar, which I thought that was hilarious. Like it's like a hat and iguanas or something.
Yeah, it's like an iguana wearing a scarf in the picture that's up there.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. But I really didn't, and I'm so, it's funny, I think I miss all the Easter eggs because I'm so busy. Whenever we watch these, I'm always looking at the animation and everything that we struggled with and overcame, and so you kind of, it takes a while for you to just kind of sit back, relax, and really take it all in, because you're always so close to the project, right, when it comes out.
Of course.
So that's why I love when people show me that. I'm like, oh, that's pretty funny. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's always nice to be surprised again.
Yeah. So you had mentioned some of the more in-depth, looking at it from an animation standpoint and getting deep in the weeds. One of the scenes that we really liked is where Jesse kicks the iguana, and you get to see a lot of that squash and stretch on his face when she kicks him.
Yeah.
And what we kind of thought was cool there is the fact that, the iguana, you could play with that a little bit more. And I know you guys, you still do a little bit with the Toy Story characters, but since they're so rigid being plastic, there's not as much of that squash and stretch. So it really just kind of like stood out to us. As soon as he got kicked, I was like, whoa, look at that.
Yeah, it's fun to have characters that have different materials that we can just play with, So the iguana for sure was something we can have a little more fun. And we were trying to find, right sort of style for the iguana. We took the iguana initially a little bit more realistic, just to kind of see how that would play, and then we got some great notes to say like, no, maybe we should try a little bit more where it's more of a pet, a little bit more puppy dog like. Maybe that'll help. Because we were just trying to find a character. It was tough. But on top of finding character, then we can really have fun with the fact that it is something that can, have a little more squash and stretch, let's say, than, like Transitron, which is just just an all plastic toy. So yeah,
which was fantastic. That Peter Sohn was his voice too.
Yeah, it's a great you'd never know, of course, because that's such a fun character. We had a blast with that one.
So one of the other things kind of along the lines of going back to the Easter eggs, one of the ones that came up a lot in our questions online as well was we had heard that Al from Al's Toy Barn was originally in the story. Did he even get far enough into where you guys were animating him at that point, or did he get cut way before from a story standpoint?
I think as far as Al was in the story was more just the fact, I think he was the person that basically bought the toys.
Yes.
So as far as Al was concerned, the only thing we had was, I think when he's sending off the boxes and he's putting down the sticker, we originally wanted to have it go to Al's toy barn. So that everybody knows, like, hey, maybe Al got the toys back, because he's buying them.
Right.
But he himself, I don't think ever was going to make an appearance besides that in the film.
Okay. And then, just kind of on a fun side, mentioning the eBid. Have you seen or heard anything about that? There's an eBid actual website.
Oh no, I haven't.
Yeah,
no.
It's hilarious. So they posted like an official press release. They're doing a whole bunch of Toy Story auctions of characters, and they're saying like, it's going to go towards charity, and they literally like, sometimes like a company might get uptight if their product or company is mentioned within something, not used.
Oh, yeah.
But they're all about it. They're literally like throwing it out there. They're like,
they created the username Iguana Lover 75.
Yeah.
Oh wow. That's yeah.
So
there's some love for you.
So definitely check out eBid, their website. It's hilarious, like what they're doing, and they're going to be launching more things. They're selling all these great Toy Story toys, and they're all going to charity and everything. So it's neat.
Yeah, it's nice to see some, that they're having fun with it, and that I don't know what it took for us to get that or the eBid name or anything like that, but it's funny that there's one out there and that they're really having fun, and it's going to a good cause. That's really cool.
Yeah. All right. So I want to wrap up with kind of one other question that we had from one of our readers as well, and then just another kind of final question on Toy Story of Terror.
Sure.
So in this one from one of our readers was, again, it's kind of back on the typical hours of an animator. Now, you had mentioned obviously working long hours, staying late, even as a student, being in the lab a long time. So is there a standard of what an animator is supposed to work for, as far as a typical hours? And then is there something that, from an animating standpoint, is more common? So here's what's ideal, and here's what really happens.
Right, okay. I think on average we do the 9 to 6, which is pretty typical, just your normal work schedule, and that is, I think, the average. I think we really do that, because there are times when our productions do get heavy, and we have to stay and work harder hours. But then there's also times when things get a little bit light and we're able to work just less hours. Mm-hmm. So it actually kind of usually just averages out to being, I think, like more closer just being a 9 to 6 kind of job. If of course if we have a lot of projects we're working on, then sometimes we have to stay later and work a little bit harder to get those out. But like I mentioned before, I think it's just part of the job, as well as it is a lot of fun what we do. So it sometimes it doesn't seem as it doesn't seem like you're working sometimes that long.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think the average is still, I'd say, just like your typical 9 to 6.
That's fantastic. All right, so wrapping up, and again, we don't want you to have to give away any secrets. You may not know anything, but people are already dying, and we're already dying to know, what is the future of Toy Story of Terror? Is there going to be, or do we know of anything of an online release? If it's going to be on a Blu-ray with some extras included, because we'd love to watch some of those behind the scenes. Didn't know if you knew anything about that from the future of Toy Story of Terror.
Oh, I don't actually. I don't know the future of it. I hope that it's it'll go online, and I hope I hope we get to show some of the behind the scenes on a Blu-ray. That would be awesome. But I really don't know sort of what the future brings. I think we're just happy that we did it. People really have responded well to it, and it was a really fun show to do here at the studio. I mean, it was a real blast. And it was a great, we have a lot of, for instance, like we have in animation, we have a lot of young animators, and a lot of veterans. And this show was really done with a lot of young animators who really got their chance to really, to just, come up and shine, and it was great. It was great for them to, the work was wonderful. I just had such a fun time.
Okay, so first off, thank you. We have to say thank you again to Pixar, to Animation Collaborative, and to Michal Makarewicz for taking the time to chat with us. In our show notes, again, we're going to have more pictures from Animation Collaborative, a little bit more details about Animation Collaborative. So I can't recommend checking it out enough, as well as just listening to that interview again. Just listen to it again. Listen to it again and again. I mean, how much passion, like we talked about before it started, how much passion, how much drive, how much energy do you feel from that?
Yeah, he has animation running through his veins, I think. There's some people that just have a knack for things, and he has a knack for animation. Yeah. I mean, he has it.
Yeah. And I absolutely loved how when we were talking with him, he just makes you feel like you're chatting with an old friend.
Oh,
so it was just like right into
completely.
Yep. So that was fantastic. So thanks again there. So what was your favorite moment from the interview?
I liked finding out that he had animated on Toy Story of Terror, that he did the Lego Bunny.
Right. Obviously, you had mentioned that when we went during the interview as well. But so that part was so fascinating. Like, how many pieces was it?
180. Yeah.
Was it 180?
180.
180.
180 individual pieces that he animated. And he basically said that because he has that high level of organization, that he took that, tedious task on, to save the film, budget-wise, money-wise, so they could use that elsewhere. I thought that was like, wow, to know your skill, to know that, what, I have this.
Yep.
I can do this. I'm going to work these long hours. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he does Animation Collaborative. He works at Pixar. I mean, what doesn't this guy do?
He works with the interns in the education program at Pixar.
Yeah, and it's, that scene was like overtime. He was...
Well, maybe.
I mean,
maybe. I mean, he talked about the hours in there, and that was one of my favorite parts, is where he talked about, some of, kind of, again, in a way, his path to Pixar, and then also with the scheduling, that they try to keep everything to a more work-life balance, regular 9 to 5, 9 to 6 kind of scheduling. So I thought that was really interesting. One of my other favorite parts was the discussion of the dailies, and that was again a reader submitted question. So I loved that. So thank you again I'm just going to interrupt myself there and say thank you again to our readers. We had posted on the forum and we said, hey, for anybody that wants to ask a question, what would you ask an animator that was working on Toy Story of Terror if you could? So we had a ton of great submissions. I think we were able to squeeze in 3 or 4 questions in the interview with Michal from our readers. So certainly thank you again for that question, because I thought that was a fascinating one, that the dailies, that you essentially, you're not showing them whether you're not comfortable or not. They're going to give you a little bit of time. I mean, obviously not forever,
right,
but they're going to give you your time to do that. And then my other favorite part from the interview was the clarifying the roles between what an animator, a supervising animator, and directing animator is. And I thought that was great. I thought that was really great insight to learn some of that hierarchical structure at Pixar, and how that role lays there.
Yeah, just like he said, I don't think a lot of people know. I think when people see directing animator, they might think, oh, that that person's right underneath the director. So I thought it was interesting to hear.
Well, supervising, directing, all those different who's under who, and
Yeah.
It was
great. we had known, but I just think it's really interesting because I don't think many people would know that.
Of course.
If you see directing, you just think, all right, that person's, second in line.
Right. So, well, anyways, that about wraps up episode 21 of the Pixar Post Podcast. We certainly hope you enjoyed the interview, and if you enjoyed this episode, we wanted to take a moment and ask if you could head over to iTunes and rate us on the iTunes store. It'll help us essentially with just getting a little bit better ranking on the podcast page when people are searching for animation or Pixar-related podcasts. So, again, thank you for listening, and we'll catch up with you next time. Signing off as usual, I'm TJ.
And I'm Julie.
And be sure to stay tuned to PixarPost.com all week for the latest Pixar news.